as a kid, I knew I always had the hunger to find out who my father was.
But it's interesting when I come to my adult life, I can think of at least 4 men that I was in relationships with who never knew their father. Never knew their father. And then I can think of 2 who they didn't feel they were treated the way they didn't get the love and nurturing from their mother that, they wanted.
And this is why I know my creator, places people in your life to help you to learn something. And you may not know what it is right away. But if you're seeking something in life, people will be placed there. And it doesn't mean they're going to be there for a lifetime.
Hey, everyone. Let's start healing. I'm Adrienne Murchison, and welcome to the Let's Start Healing podcast. We have more in common than we think, and what we have in common can change the world. Well, my guest today is Etienne Brown, and I am so grateful to him for joining me and talking about his story and his journey that I think aspects of really translate to many of us. He shares his upbringing and how that shaped him into who he is today, and how his journey as an adult has led into his spirituality. So I actually met him in my work as a journalist, and I was working with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution at the time, covering College Park, where he was living at the time, and we met and stayed connected, and then we connected on social media, and I saw how spiritual he is, and I thought, let me ask him if he would be interested in coming on Let's Start Healing and sharing his story. And we unpacked some things, and it is very, as I said, I find it powerful, and I think that it's something that really resonates with us, and resonates with many of us, and it had me thinking of a book that I'm reading right now, which is called Kin by Tayari Jones. And as I'm talking to him, I'm thinking about this book, which really is not his story. It's about 2 young women, actually 2 little girls, who are bonded from infancy, and how they grow up and how their lives unfold. And that story is not his story, the story in this book that I highly recommend. But at the same time, I see a connection, and it really speaks to how we have more in common than we think, and what we have in common can change the world, because we all want to be loved. We all want to be understood, and how that translates into our relationships, whether that happens or it doesn't happen, or how we move along our path as we try to navigate getting to know ourselves. So I'm so grateful for Etienne for being on Let's Start Healing, and I'm excited for you to get to meet him and get to know him. I have some great news. Let's Start Healing is a finalist in the Atlanta Press Club Awards of Excellence. And I worked so hard on this podcast, and it means so much to me. And I'm so grateful that it resonates, and it's a finalist in this category of regularly released podcasts. I want to invite you to subscribe to Let's Start Healing. If you haven't already, please like this episode and share Let's Start Healing with at least one person that you know. So let's get to it. Let's meet him. Let's get started, and let's start healing. Welcome, Etienne.
thank you for having me. I've been eagerly anticipating talking with you, and I am honored that you reached out to me to be a guest on your podcast. I had been watching some of your programs, and I'm absolutely in love with what you're doing. And I did want to say that I don't know if you know this or not, but I do believe you have found one of your purposes, and you're making the world a better place.
That means so much to me. Thank you. That means the
No,
world to
thank you.
me. Thank you. I do want to walk in my purpose, and I do feel this is a big part of my purpose. And so that means a lot. Thank you so, so much.
You're so
So, so
welcome.
much. Yes. And although I know you from before we became Facebook friends, knowing you as a Facebook friend, I could see that you're a very spiritual person and spiritually grounded. And I just thought it would be wonderful to have you on and to talk with you.
Well, thank you so much. I was, as I mentioned, just really felt honored when you reached out to me, and just glad to be here. So
Well,
I'm looking forward to what you have to ask and me sharing.
thank you. And well, for what, first of all, I would like to know the origin of your name because if I didn't know, I would want to ask you, are you from Louisiana or something like that? Because it's such a unique name and the way it's pronounced. What's the origin of your name?
Well, my mom told me that she took French, and it's a French name, and she read it in a book. And you know how some black people can give their children these names that we have to live with. As a kid, I hated that because nobody could pronounce it. They thought it was a girl's name. And
Yes.
so I had a really tough time growing up with it. But it wasn't until I became, I guess, a young adult that I started to appreciate that name. And so
Hmm.
that's where it came from. It's a French name.
Yes, beautiful. Do you have a middle name?
I'd rather not say because it's worse than the first name. And everybody asked me about that. But I can say my last name is very simple. It's a black name and it's Brown. But my middle name is worse than the first. But
Well,
I love it now too.
that's great. That's great. That's so funny. I have a good friend. She waited years to tell me her middle name. I
Uh,
can't tell you. I
uh,
can't tell you.
uh.
So, well, how are you with God today? And do you call God God and that higher power? How are you vibing with that source today?
I'm vibing with the creator, God, a higher being, because I use all of those terms at any given time. And I try to have that positive vibe every day, even on days where I'm not feeling so great. But I start my day off with reading very inspirational pieces, spiritual things that um, I guess lift my spirits to a higher place and a place of positivity.
Hmm.
And I do want to say that I always say when I wake up some mornings and I'm getting better at saying it every day is that even when you ask me to be on your podcast, I always like to say, I'm still learning and I come in peace. This creates an energy of positive peace for me. You reaching out to me, I just wanted to be sure that when I did this during this discussion, I like people to know who meet me that I'm still learning and
Hmm.
that I come in peace. And it creates a positive energy for me when I interact with people.
Yes. Yes. I think to be still learning and growing, each and every one of us is a wonderful thing. I mean, we can, to be open to that, I think is a wonderful thing because until we take our last breath, we can continue to learn and grow and evolve.
Yeah.
So, yeah, today I was thinking about how even in whoever the person that we might think is the worst person on the planet, whoever that may be for, any of us, I was thinking how even in that person, in me, in you, in that person is the Spirit of God. And the Spirit of God is peace and joy. And you know how it's a choice to remove the layers that cover that up. And then later on, I happened to be watching the interview of Savannah Guthrie. They had the full interview that she did for the Today Show on YouTube. And she was talking about going back to work, and she doesn't know how she's going to be when she gets back, but the place is a joyful place, and she considers it another home. And the kidnappers of her mother, she said she's not going to let them steal her joy. As heartbroken and as wrecked as she is, this is still a place of joy for her. And she also acknowledged wrestling with God, wrestling with her faith, and although she's a deeply faithful person. But I thought that was really powerful about not letting someone steal our joy, even when we're in grief and fear and terror, not letting someone steal our joy, because that joy is real. It is real inside of us, but we really cover it up.
Yeah. And I so much agree with that. And thank you for saying that, because I think all of us have that experience multiple times in our lives, or maybe one or two times. I know I certainly can resonate with that, especially growing up as a child and in the environment that I was in. And it's something that you don't innately come to. You have to learn how to get to that place in the times of storms. And I think the more you practice in learning how to get to that place, it becomes easier, and you can find some peace even in a storm. It's not easy, but I think for me, myself, I've learned how to do that, and I'm still learning every day. Like I said, I don't think I'm ever going to stop learning how to find peace until I'm dead. And once I'm gone, there won't be no need to. But yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. And even as we were having our discussion, I was reflecting on some of the trauma I had growing up and what I did to find peace in that experience. And it came in so many ways that I didn't realize it at the time. But as I got older, I started to think about, wow, even in that storm, that was a form of peace for me.
Right, right, right. Let's go there now. I mean, we can move around in this conversation, but I was actually reflecting on what you were sharing when we talked before this podcast last week about how you grew up and just how that can shape our well-being, how we grow up. And then we have to learn, like you just said, we have to learn to find our peace, to find that connection, when we get into those places of upset as a result of how we grew up and how our journey was shaped. So are you comfortable sharing now just about how you grew up and where you grew up?
Okay. I grew up, well, I was born in Louisville, Kentucky. Um, and most of my extended family lives there now. But my mom took me from Louisville, Kentucky, and moved me to St. Louis. I was the firstborn. I have four siblings. And um, we all have different fathers. So something earlier on in my life, and I didn't start to, as a child, there were things I didn't understand, didn't know how to articulate, but the core and essence of who I was, I always felt that something was not right, not um, comfortable in how I was being raised, what I was seeing in my family. What first triggered me was I remember going to kindergarten, and this was in St. Louis. My mother took me to St. Louis. And I remember going to, she taking me to administration to get registered in school. And one of the administrators asked my mother, who's the father? Because whatever, either the birth certificate or something was not on the information she provided to my mother. And my mother said, I'm his mother and his father. Now I'm 5 years old and I'm hearing this, and that has stuck with me to this day. That was the first signal to me that something wasn't right about how I was brought into the world. And what people don't realize is children are like little sponges. They sponge, for lack of a better word. They take on things that they may not understand, but their feelings and something about what is being said and what they're hearing feels uncomfortable. And that felt uncomfortable with me. My mother not realizing that. But after that, I started realizing that I was almost, uh, for lack of a better word, empathic to trying to understand so many things. Why I would want to know why certain things was happening, why certain things were the way they were.
Mm-hmm.
And so that started me on my journey to trying to understand the kind of existence of why I was here. And from that point on, and then, like I said, I started to realize that none of my siblings, we had the same father. And there was not a father in the home. So that started me to knowing and understanding that was problematic. But I didn't get that from my mom. It was almost like that was a pathology that was normal. It wasn't, it appeared to be normal to her, but it wasn't normal for me. And sometimes we
Mm-hmm.
don't realize the damage that we do to our children within the environment that they're in because it becomes so normal as a way of raising children.
I do want to get into your dad, but I want to ask you about your mom first. Is your mom still living?
No, my mom passed October of 2025.
Really?
Yes.
Oh
I
my.
did I did a post about that on Facebook. And I really got a lot of pushback from some people because I was very candid about
Mm-hmm.
my experience with my mom. But it was a healing process for me because one of the things I had to realize in my own journey is that I was searching for my purpose all of my life. And what I found is, and I have a little mantra that I call remember the 4 F's of life, which was find my purpose, forgive my past, focus on my present, and fuel my future. What I am doing now, my future depends on it. And so I try to live my life in that way. But I had to forgive the pain that I experienced from my mother. But what was so interesting, and you don't know this, I'm going to share it now, is that I had a discussion with my aunt, Pam. Hi, Pam, if you get a chance to see this. She was one of my mother's siblings. My mother had 7 siblings. She was one of my siblings that was totally different than my mom. And what I mean by that, she seemed to be a very nurturing person. And my mother wasn't the kind of nurturer I felt as a woman who had children. She just didn't have maternal instincts. So I had a conversation because I wanted to know what my mother's life was growing up and why she was the way she was. And my aunt shared this with me, that my mother wasn't a kind of maternal person. She was a beautiful woman. I always felt my mother and thought my mother, even growing up, was beautiful. And I saw how men looked at her and how she used that to her advantage. And but my aunt told me that, yeah, your mother was smart in school. She was beautiful. She used her beauty to her advantage, but she used it in a way that wasn't building a solid foundation. And when she said that, it hit home for me really well, because I think in order to raise a healthy and wholesome household with children and a husband and a wife, you have to be on solid ground. And I always felt growing up, I was always trying to find solid ground. So when I had that discussion with my aunt, who I was always close with, and the interesting thing is I didn't find out who my father was till I was 30. And the reason why I didn't is because as a kid, I knew I always had the hunger to find out who my father was. So I would ask this aunt who I knew would eventually tell me, because I could remember probably I was 10 years old, and I would ask her and she would not tell me, ask your mother. So when I asked my mother would say, you don't need to know. He's not here with you. He's not providing for you. So I just left it alone. But I knew with this aunt, if I continued to ask her, at some point she was going to tell me. So once again, I was in high school. I went back to her and asked her, because I knew eventually I was going to wear her down.
Yeah.
And in high school, I asked her. Once again, she said, no, ask your mother, But then when I went out on my own, I left St. Louis. I moved to Chicago. I lived in Chicago for 10 years. And then from there, I started becoming the man who I was going to be. Started building a life of my own that was outside of the environment that I was growing up in, because I felt it was very toxic. We had, a lot of single parent homes. And I always thought that was something wasn't right about that, but I gravitated to friends who had both parents in the home. And I think that was some help for me to really understand and see how a healthy household would look. My aunt had one that I admired, because when she got married, I observed her. She probably don't even know this, but I observed her household when she got married, when she started having children, how her children, who are my cousins, loved their father, would do things together. They would come to visit us in St. Louis. And I thought, wow, this is what a wholesome, healthy family looked like. A mother and a father with children loving their father just as much as their mother. One was not any better than the other. So I kind of gravitated toward that. And when I became 30, I asked, and I hope I'm making sense. I asked my aunt once again, can you tell me who my father was? And then she decided to tell me. She said, your mother did not want us to say who your father was, but I'm going to tell you who he is. I'm going, because we see him all the time.
Mhm.
He lives in Louisville. We see him all the time. I'm going to reach out to him and tell him you're trying to connect with him. She did that. And once we connected, it was just like a whole, I felt at least a peace. Not that I wanted a relationship with him, but I wanted to know who he was and hear his side of the story, because my mother had always given me negative comments about him and, you know, whatever their relationship was, which had nothing to do with me, because I
Mhm.
felt regardless of what their relationship was, a child needs to know who both parents are and hear both sides so they can analyze the situation, become a critical thinker, and draw their own conclusion. So that was once my aunt connected with him,
Yeah.
connected him with me. We talked for like a year. We talked on the phone like we were FaceTime. It was just so amazing. And I was so amazing to see how he looked, where I came from.
Yeah.
And I also had a brother, which I connected with too. So when I got ready to meet my father a month, this was happening during a whole year time. We were communicating back and forth on the phone, writing each other letters. I was
This was
talking
when
to,
you were 30,
yeah. Mhm.
30-ish. Mhm.
And I was talking to my brother, and who's younger than me. Um, then once I got ready to go down to Louisville to meet him, he died.
Your
He had a
father.
heart attack. So I went to the funeral. And when I went to the funeral, all of these people who was on his side of the family, they knew who I was, but I didn't know any of them because of whatever relationship my mother had with them. I got a chance to meet my brother, and we hung out, spent time together, and that was just an amazing feeling. And that brought closure to that part of my life.
Mhm.
And I never had the opportunity to tell my mother that I had connected with him and that I knew who he was, because I just didn't.
Your mother never knew that you
Mm-mm.
connected with your father.
She never knew. Mm-mm.
And you told me, I believe, that he passed a month before you were planning to go visit him,
Right,
right?
right.
Did you two have an opportunity to FaceTime, did you say, or do a
Uh-huh.
Zoom?
Yeah, on the phone. We did on the phone and stuff, and sent pictures, letters. Um, I went down there in Louisville and hung out with my brother, and it was just the resemblance was so, to be able to see somebody who looked like you was just amazing, because none of my siblings, we look alike. We all
Mhm.
had different parent fathers.
So, what is your understanding, if you're comfortable sharing, what is your understanding of the story of why he was not in your life?
Um, my mother, they were young in high school. My father said to me, which my mother didn't say, my father said we were young. We didn't, we couldn't take care of any children. Uh, they didn't have any life skills. They were still being taken care of by their parent.
And
So, and my mother, and I'm not proud to say this, was a fast, what they would call a fast girl. And, um, so that's was his side of what occurred. What I do know is that I had my mother had an aunt who I think worked for a doctor, and they tried to get my mother to have an abortion, which was me. And my mother decided that she was not going to have an abortion. She was going to keep her child. And that's what she did. But her decision to keep her child, which was me, was difficult because she was not equipped to raise a child on her own. And what people don't know, when you're not equipped or have the tools or have the proper support system to raise a child in that environment, was a nightmare. Now, growing up, I asked one of my sisters who I was close with if she wanted to know who her father was, and she said she didn't. And I thought that was really strange because...
So none of your siblings know who their father is?
Well, one of my other ones does. She does know who her father is. He's deceased now, but she was the only one that did. But the other ones know.
Yeah. So did you and your mother ever have any close moments?
No, I'll tell you, I can't remember my mother ever saying she loved me growing up. What I could remember her saying was that as long as you got a roof over your head and food to eat, I love you. But I remember my mother saying, as she got older, because I had to put her in a independent living, because I lived at that time in Los Angeles. And when I came back to St. Louis to put her in a independent living home, then she started telling me that she loved me. And that was what I believe was because she needed my help. We had a very strained relationship. And I'll tell you, whenever we had any conversation, it was always a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to be very candid by saying this. Because of the environment I was raised in, I remember my high school sweetheart. We would skip school and have sex. And because we were together since high school, she said, let's have a baby. And that triggered me because I knew what my life was without being able to take care of myself. And then here she was saying, let's have a baby. During that whole time we were together, I was using protection because I knew what my life was.
Were you still in high school or were you in your 20s at that time?
No, I was still in high school. So this was my high school sweetheart. What is it? From 9th grade to becoming a senior. But just to give you a picture of the environment, there was a lot of that going on in that environment where it seemed to be the norm. But for me, it wasn't normal. I said, "Are you crazy? I can't take care of myself. I can't take care of you. You can't take care of a baby." So being in that kind of environment, you think that kind of stuff is normal. And when you see people doing it, you think it's normal. So I was always on a search to find and ask why. Why? I knew there was something better for me. And once I got out on my own and left, moved to Chicago, then to Los Angeles, I started meeting people who had a different perspective. That's when I started becoming more of who I believe I was meant to be. Because in that environment, had I stayed in St. Louis, I would have been probably killed, on drugs, or probably with multiple children that I couldn't take care of.
Yeah. Yeah. What took you to California?
Okay, what eventually took me to Chicago. I went to Chicago first. When
Right. Right.
after I got graduated from high school, I got a job in St. Louis called A.G. Edwards, which was a investment firm that registered um, stockbrokers on the Chicago Board of Trade. So I had been there maybe 3 or 4 years, and so I had friends who would travel. And so I went to Chicago and I liked Chicago. I started reaching out to some of the people who worked for the Chicago Board of Trade and said, hey, are there any openings here? And one of the managers called me and said, hey, we have something that we think you would be interested in. And about maybe a couple of weeks later, they offered me the job. And because I had friends in Chicago, that allowed me to make the transition from St. Louis to Chicago. They put me up. I had a place to stay. And from there, things just started to work out for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of my high school friends moved to Los Angeles. And I got laid off my job in Chicago, the Chicago Board of Trade. And I didn't know what I was going to do next. So then he said, hey, why don't you come down to LA for a while till you decide what you want to do? So when I got to LA, he was working all the time. So I got bored and I said, I need to do something. And so I went to Los Angeles County and they hired me as a temp first. And I got the job as a temp. And one of the managers came and said, hey, we got a full-time position. And this is how God and life works. Things was just happening for me. I didn't realize that that's how it was until I started getting older and realized. So people, I call them little angels, were just placed in positions that I didn't know. So they offered me the job. I took the job. I made arrangements to sell all of my stuff back in Chicago and move to Los Angeles. And I was there for 30 years.
Yes.
In that same job. Not the same job, but constantly promoted. And I'm retired now, but once I decided that I was going to retire, I knew I was going to move back south because most of my family's in the South.
I see.
I sold my home in LA and I retired in March of 2023, but as you know, I bought a home here at the end of December 2023, and that's a whole nother story that didn't work out.
Right.
But you know about that.
Yes.
So that's how life happened for me. But as I think about my life, Adrienne, although it was traumatic and traumatizing at certain stages and ages, I still believe that there were angels guiding me through different phases and stages of my life, and people placed in positions because I was seeking. I was seeking answers. I was seeking how to get out of debt. I was seeking how to buy a home. I was seeking because I didn't get any of this from my immediate family. But people, and this is what I believe, once the pain becomes so great in your life and you want to do something different, you're going to start doing different things to get to that. You don't know, you don't know how you're going to get to it, but people are going to start showing up that you didn't know were there and why they were there. And so that's what happened for me. People started showing up. But in terms of my spirituality, I always had in my quiet time, people would send me inspirational things, prayer, things. I was a kind of avid reader on stuff that what made people aspire to different heights. Like there were people like, I don't know if you're familiar with who I would seek out, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, James Baldwin,
Mhm.
Susan Taylor, Iyanla Van Zant. These people started showing up, and I
Yeah.
was meeting these people and having a thirst for what they were saying.
Yes.
And it took me to a different trajectory in my life. The finance and how to handle money came from Dave Ramsey. I don't know if you've ever heard of
Mhm.
him. He's a
Yes.
financial guru. I would watch him religiously, call into his show, listen to Susie Orman. All of these things I got from other people. And I thought these are really angels because the pain of growing up and not having this or being exposed to it, they was just showing up.
Yeah. And what inspired you to come up with the 4 F's for your life that you read?
I was just listening because I'm always listening to stuff. Uh, and I think once you start listening to stuff, especially through social media, there's something you'll listen to that resonates with you. Even with you, when you reached out to me about Let's Start Healing, I watched some of your podcasts and I felt so comfortable, and you just resonated with me so naturally. And even with you, that's why I say it just felt right.
Mhm.
It felt comfortable because I felt your spirit and I felt what you were doing is making the world a better place. And that's what I always try to do. I try to
Yeah.
look for things that help me to become a better person. And I want to share something with you. I hope you don't mind that
No,
I
not at all.
share, because I wrote a few notes down that I wanted to share. I try to practice everyday positive behavior that I call exercise in Black mental health and self-respect toward people. And some of them are stop calling people out of their names, stop cursing at people, stop gossiping about people, stop arguing with people, stop being discourteous and disrespectful toward people, stop throwing down trash where you live, work, and play. Always look for the good in situations because the bad will hit you in the face first. In living color. And what I've come to learn, and this disturbs me, but I've had to come to try to be patient with this. One of the things that causes me dis-ease in my body is every time I hear Black people call each other out of their name. And one of the things is we become so customary with calling each other the N word. That causes so much anxiety in me because we don't realize the history behind that.
Right.
White people used to have church services, and on their program, say after church, we going to hang Black people. And that was the word they used when they were lynching you. And so now a lot of our people use that so easily. It's like without any thought.
Mhm.
I've had to learn how to be, for lack of a better, it just causes some real disease in my body about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And every time I get an opportunity, I try to address it with people. And I can't change people. I know I can't change people. People are going to be. But I just wish sometimes we understood how disrespectful
Mm-hmm.
that is toward each other. Even when we call our women the B word, the
Yeah.
the whore word, we've made that as a term of endearment, and that just causes so much dis-ease in my body when I hear and see us doing that to each
Yeah.
other.
And I think that as people individually become more self-aware, then those things can drop away. But a lot of times, like you said, we're shaped by the way that we grew up
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times. And then, as I said, I think sometimes those things can drop away. But it is, even this conversation has me thinking a lot about how I mentioned to you how I grew up with both of my parents, and most of my friends grew up with both of their parents. That's the environment I was in mostly. But it's interesting when I come to my adult life, I can think of at least 4 men that I was in relationships with who never knew their father. Never knew their father. And then I can think of 2 who they didn't feel they were treated the way, they didn't get the love and nurturing from their mother that, they wanted. And it's, that turns into a whole different generation, and then that turns into an ongoing generation. It spirals into how we communicate with each other, and learning to communicate, learning to express our emotions and our feelings. And it really requires a lot of self-help and self-care and self-love, like what you described, and what I try to do myself. So it's just something,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
landscape that's
and
out here.
just it's unfortunate, but it's a reality. And I think for me, that was one of the reasons why the people growing up and family members that I knew had both a mother and a father, I kind of gravitated toward those people even growing up, because I certainly did have some friends who had both parents in the house, and I gravitated toward that. But for the most part, and I remember one of my sisters saying that when she took her son, her her son's father took him to school, and the other kids asked him, "Your father lives with you?" I could not believe that she told me that's what some of his classmates said.
Yeah, I was in my 30s, and I was seeing someone in his 30s, and he was educated, he was an attorney, and when we were getting to know each other, he said, "Which one of your parents did you grow up with?" And I was fascinated by that question, but
Mm-hmm.
it was enlightening that somebody would ask me that,
Right,
because,
right.
of what you just said. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to bring up while we're having this discussion, and I hope I'm not going into a tangent,
No.
um, I did go back and listen to that podcast you mentioned to me with Clifton Powell in it.
Yes.
I
Yes.
listened to the whole thing, and that was so awesome. So I thank you for that. I listened to that whole podcast, and that was something, as I was listening to it, and after I listened to the end, it was such a teachable moment that I think so many young boys and girls should look at that to see how Black men communicate, Black
Mhm.
men talk to each other, because I think it's a learning experience. A lot of times, specifically we as Black boys, don't really see how Black men interact until we become a man ourselves.
Right.
And if you don't have a man in the home, that looks foreign to you.
Mhm.
So I thought to myself, wow, this needs to be an ongoing kind of situation. Both girls and boys need to see that, because children are so curious. And I remember growing up, whenever I asked my mother was something, and I still sometimes hear people say, uh, shut up, you don't need to know that. Curious children, when they ask questions, they want to know for a specific reason. And I think sometimes the parents just don't know and shut up, you don't need to know that.
Yeah.
It's just a way of not letting the children blossom into who they're becoming. And certainly there's conversations that parents should have with their children that's age appropriate. But to say, shut up, you don't need to know that, you're squashing a child's dreams and who they become, because children are so curious about life and growing up. So I thought when I was watching that, boy, this is something that young kids need to have, and even have a discussion about what they
Yeah.
saw and what that looks like for them. Even the adults, all of the men in that room could learn something, because I thought as much as they attacked Clifton, that one guy attacked him, that needed to be seen so that you can learn how Black men should learn how to be able to communicate without being hostile. And a lot
Right.
of times we don't know how to communicate without it leading into a fight, without it being hostile, and without letting our egos get in the way.
Right. Right.
One of the things I thought about that was they needed to have an entire group of men, a number of them all at a certain age. Like Clifton Paul, I think he was 70. He was the only one there. There should have been some other ones, maybe
Yeah.
70, 60, 40, so
Yeah.
that the room could be equal in terms of the age, because we can learn something from all ages.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They needed to have, it would have been great, even if there was one other person who was in his age range,
Right,
that would have been great. And then also you and I had talked about how it would have been great if there was a facilitator
right,
in the conversation. And we're
exactly.
talking about, I'll put a link to it in the description of this episode, but I can't remember what the name of that episode was, but it
Oh,
was
I remember, I wrote it down.
okay. Share.
Yeah, it was called Black Men Trust Black Women Roundtable.
Yes.
And it
Yeah.
was such a powerful podcast. And we need more of that, because these Black men were speaking from a place of other Black men, talking to other Black men, different perspectives,
Right.
different views and ways of seeing things. But I totally agree. They needed a facilitator, because without a facilitator, things can get out of hand, which it
Right.
certainly did.
It did.
But
And
even that, I always say we have to learn everything. Nothing comes to us through osmosis. We have
yeah,
to be taught everything.
you are
And
so
even when it
right.
got out of hand, the facilitator, if they had a facilitator, would have come back and steered them back to a place of calm.
That's true. And you're so right in what you're saying. Where I agree with this so much, because of spiritual discussion groups that I've been a member of, I have learned about nonviolent communication and what's the other in what do you call it? In 12-step groups, they also have, which I forgot what it's called, but it's adopted from Native Americans, where, you listen and you let the other person complete their thought, and you don't necessarily contradict what they're saying. You add on to it, or you say, well, this is my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is about wanting to learn different ways of communicating. So now if I'm in a conversation with people in a group where it's, just a combative conversation, it's really odd to me, because that's not the way it's supposed to go.
Right.
It's supposed to be a
Right.
facilitator, or the people around the table should have an understanding of what the intention is and how that what the vibe and the flow of that is going to be.
Right. And I think what people need to learn is we need to learn to listen, because we're so trying to get our point across. Listen, and I wrote this down for myself because I listen to learn, to analyze, to critical think, and to be able so you can go out and teach. But a
Yes.
lot of times we're so busy not listening, trying to get our point across, where we don't learn because we're so stuck in whatever our ego, specifically men.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that we all need to learn. And that comes from, our upbringing, our environment, and so many other things. I don't know how much time I have with you because I'm loving this. I did want to share with you one, because I try to read something every day that inspires me. And I wanted to read something to you that inspired me today.
Yes, please.
Okay. And it's from a book that I have called, I don't know if you're familiar with this, it's called Black Pearls.
No. Okay.
It's,
Who's it
it's called
by?
Black Pearls.
Is there author or it's thick
Uh,
too?
it's 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 I'll tell you. Can you see it?
Eric V. Cooper?
Eric
Oh
V.
no.
Copage.
Copage. Okay.
Okay, and it's called Black Pearls. It's called Daily Meditations, Affirmations, and Inspirations for African Americans. And the one that I read today is called Faith. I've had so many downs that I knew the law of averages would be in my favor one day. That's by Doug Williams. And then it goes on to say, when life seems to bring nothing but a string of defeats, disappointments, we've got to have faith that something good is still in store for us. With faith, we can forge ahead and continue to put forth our best effort. Without it, we give up and accept what comes our way, good or bad. Our precious dreams begin to seem absurdities. It is imperative that we see ourselves as worthy and deserving of a good life. There may be rejections, it may take us a while, but as long as we stay in the game, there's every chance we'll score. On the sidelines, we can only watch as others do the work of winning. On this day, I will spend 5 minutes to relax and visualize success in achieving one of my goals. That
That,
was what I read today for myself.
that's powerful. Very powerful. Is it dated like the whatever number of day this is of the year?
This one I read today was January the 1st. So
Mhm.
every day there's something, but I kind of go back and forth. I
Yeah,
just kind of flip through it, and whatever I feel is necessary for me that day, I'll read it.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you for
So
sharing.
thank you.
So one, I want to ask you, how has it been with your intimate relationships and communication, given your journey? Has that been an evolution as you've learned and grown and evolved?
Um, yes, it has both. My intimate journeys have learned to become a better person with people that I interact with. And as I stated, I'm still learning every day because I didn't have the best relationships because I didn't know how to. I was only what I've seen and experienced and the people that were in my environment. I'm still
Yes.
growing in that aspect as well. So that's a daily, um, I won't say a challenge, it's a daily learning journey.
Mm-hmm. And one of your 4 F's was discovering your purpose. And I think you also said our conversation about why were you born? Why are you here? What have been the answers to those questions for you? What do you think God is calling you to do for your purpose?
I think for me, and I'm just going right off the top of my head, is to be the best person I can be, to learn from every encounter that I have from people. When I meet people, engage with them from a place of love. They don't
Yeah.
have to know what's going on in my head, but I engage with them from a place of love, respect. And
Mhm.
what I found is it's not going to always happen, but when you speak to people and engage with people from a place of love and respect, you get that back. And
Mhm.
it's however you want to call it, reciprocity. And
Mhm.
certainly there's going to be times that you don't get it back, but you have to learn how to deal with that from a place of calm and patience as well, because that's going to be life. Everybody's not going to see life through rose colored glasses like I may. And when you face with those kind of challenges, how you handle them determines your character.
Mhm.
I'll tell you, do I have time to tell you,
Yeah.
share something with you?
Yes. Yes.
When I first came here, I guess probably about a year in, and I did post this on my uh, Facebook post too. I had an accident on Old National Highway in my car, and two women we hit each we there were two women in the car. We hit each other. And so when we were riding, I don't know if you're familiar with Old National Highway, but it's a busy intersection. So when we hit each other, the women got out of their car. They was much younger than me. I could see that they were like maybe 25 or 30 years old. The first thing they got out of their car to do was start yelling at me, screaming at me, saying we should kick your ass and you're an old man, you hit our car. And what I realized is that they were so upset about the moment that had I not come from a place of peace and calm with them, it could have got ugly out there because the traffic was going back and forth, east and west, or however it goes.
Mhm.
But I stayed calm, and I told one of the ladies that let's wait until the police come and let them handle it. They will determine how and who was at fault. So once the lady saw that I wasn't going to raise my attitude or my disposition to their level, they calmed down as well.
Mhm.
And it could have been a very bad situation because they were angry,
Yeah.
not really realizing.
Mhm.
They just assumed that I was at fault. So
Mhm.
when the officer came and he took our um, comments about what occurred, because he was going to make a decision who was at fault.
Mhm.
And what he conclusion he drew is he couldn't determine who was at fault. But what I realized is a lot of young people don't know how to manage anger conflict.
Right.
Had
Yes.
I been a person who yelled and screamed and got angry at that level, it could have been awful. But because I didn't raise my temperature to their level,
Yeah.
they calmed down. And then after it was all done, they appreciated that I did not
Right.
behave like they did.
They
And
changed.
so what that taught me is as I've gotten older, I've learned how to be a better person when interacting. Had I been their age, I probably would have been like them. But
Mhm.
life teaches you a different way of behaving and acting and how to handle things.
Yes. Yeah. And I want to ask you a question, and I'm definitely not uh, seeking to go down the road of the first home that you moved into when you moved here in the way that I met you.
Mhm.
But I was just thinking about how you mentioned this situation because you came here in 2023, right?
Right. Hmm.
So in a short period of time, you have had um, trials in a new city. I assume this is a new city for you.
Uh-huh.
And so you had an accident in the home that you thought was going to be your long-term home turned out to not be your long-term
Right.
home. And you lost your mom, just last year, even though you two weren't close. You still lost your mother, and there may have been other things. And just if you could speak to how that ties in with your relationship with God, and staying resolved to stay connected to your faith and to keep going from one day to another when things happen unexpectedly. When you think things are going to go one way, you think maybe you're going to go down, you're going to go from point A to point B down the road, an accident, which has happened to us all. And,
Hmm.
it's always, jolting or jarring. And something is, like a home where we think we're going to have a foundation and it turns out to not be what we thought it was, or the loss of a family member. So just how has that been for you? How have you nurtured yourself and stayed connected to God, from day to day during these unexpected
I'm
things?
I'm glad you asked me that question, Adrian. And um, what has helped me to stay focused and get closer to my higher being, my spirituality. One of the things I would say is that earlier on as a child, and this was what started the foundation was I went to church as a kid. So I got and I was the church that I went to was a Baptist church because I think that the church does provide a foundation. Now, whether or not you stay in it or not, the foundation is start for me. It was started there. I got the foundation of biblical teachings and the church. As I became older, I started to decide if I wanted to go on my own or if I was going to be constantly going. I made a decision that I could go if I didn't. But as a kid, I was forced to go, even though my mother didn't go. But it was necessary as part of my life. And this is something I had thought about too. It was necessary as part of my life to get the foundation. As I became older, I decided that I could go if I wanted to because friends would invite me to their church. And when they say, oh, you go, or you're a member of the church, and I would say no. And it was like, why aren't you a member of the church? I had made a decision that I didn't want to go because I didn't necessarily feel that I had to go to church to be connected with my spiritual feelings, my spiritual connection, my higher being, my God, because I can be at home and pray when I'm in my quiet time, in my quiet space. That was very nurturing for me. Certainly going every now and then also helped because I do think you need to be around people with like mind. But I had decided that for me, I'll go every now and then when I want to. If somebody invites me to their church, if I feel like I want to go, I would go. But for the most part, what I started getting was I would listen to people like Maya Angelou. She gave me words of wisdom that I could listen to about prayer, what not feeling like you have to be the center of the crowd, be who you are, those kind of stuff. She has a whole series of stuff on YouTube that you can look at. Denzel Washington was another one. I listened to him too. Those kind of things I just gravitated to. And there was so much wisdom in what they were saying that helped me to have a spiritual foundation and base, which, like I say, I still listen to it every day. And I have some friends that I try to send that stuff to. They don't even care about that. And that's fine. But for me, it's important to me because it has helped me. I know that all of the things that I have in my life and have been because not that I'm so great, but because my higher being or source, God, Allah, or whatever you call it. But for me, it's the creator
Mm-hmm.
is watching over for me, watching over me. I really do believe that. And I really feel that whatever happens, and I'm a testimony to it, whatever happens, I can deal with it. I can deal. Is it going to be easy? No. Life is not easy, but how you deal with it makes a difference. And even that's why I say I'm still learning. As I get older, I'm talking to people, I'm listening to people, but I know my spiritual connection base, the things that I listen to, like I say, Denzel Washington teaching, Susan Taylor has something called In the Spirit. All of those things, for some reason, just resonated with me and
Yeah.
they kept me connected with people who were just placed in situations that helped
Mhm.
me to become the man I am today. And I'm grateful for that. I'm
Yes.
grateful that for that. And I am a very humble person. Do I face challenges? Am I angry at some people who've done some things to me? Yes. But I've learned how to be at peace with life.
Mm-hmm. I love
Life.
that. Be at peace with life.
Hmm.
That's a big statement, and it's a wonderful statement because life is hard for so many people. I'm thinking about somebody I was watching on Instagram that I kind of want to write about, and he was just talking about how life is just so hard,
Hmm.
and was just feeling really discouraged, and so coming to peace with life is a powerful statement and phrase.
And let me say this to you. I don't know if you um, know this, and I don't know if I ever shared it, but even meeting you was a blessing. Even meeting you, and this is why I know the creator, my creator, places people in your life to help you to learn something. And you may not know what it is right away, but if you seeking something in life, people will be placed there. And it doesn't mean they're going to be there for a lifetime. It could be for I
Mhm,
met you today and I learned something that I needed to go
mhm.
on to the next journey in my life. Because the first time when you reached out to me, and I don't want to go back into that,
Yeah,
but that was necessary for what brought us here,
right.
what will happen next,
Mhm.
and it's all for the good. That's how I look at it.
That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. Well, I thank you for what your words because you are a blessing to me too.
Mhm.
So
Well,
I
thank
thank
you. I appreciate that. I just look for the good, and I just, like I said, when I looked at the work that you're doing, I said, this lady is making the world a better place. And I don't know if you knew how much you are, because one of the things I think is the greatest thing that we all should seek is what is our purpose? And there's so many people on the planet who ask that question and don't have a clue. And I think it's because we're not listening to our inner selves.
right. That's
We
absolutely
got so
true.
many forces and people telling you should do this. You got to be here. You got to have that. You got to make this kind of money. And
Yeah,
you don't learn it because somebody else is telling you what you should do.
yeah, yeah. And I think I think a lot of people get to the point of listening to their inner self because I know for me, I just got weary of not listening, or weary. I think I always listened, but, became weary of not following what was resonating for me, and, or, following, too much what's not. And I still have a problem with that somewhat,
Mhm.
but yeah, I definitely know that, I've always wanted to know God. And really what I want to express is uh self-love, self-awareness, and the love of God, because I know what it is to feel alone, and it's the comfort of God has helped me to know we're not alone. And I don't want anybody to think that they're alone. I've
Mhm.
never wanted anyone to feel like they're alone. And then to really come to really viscerally understand, no, we're not alone, and feel that comfort, then that's something that I want to share.
Can I ask you something? And I wrote down some questions that I
Yeah.
have for you because, and you may have, um, one of the questions I wanted to have, how did you come to start Let's Start Healing? What was it in you that made you want to start this?
It's been a blend of things, but I think I wanted a podcast for many years. I wanted to do a podcast just through just conversation, right? We could be talking about anything. And I had been interested in doing that for years. But I'm a student of A Course in Miracles. Have you heard of that?
Mhm.
And so I was in a discussion group with that, in-person discussion group for 12 years. It was with the pandemic, the group stopped meeting in person. And that was so powerful to me. And there's people who come to that spiritual study from all walks of life, all spiritual backgrounds, and to be able to talk and feel fulfilled and grow from your understanding of these words. So, like, you might have an understanding that's different from my understanding, but still listening to you is enlightening to me and can feed into my own understanding. And so that conversations around God like that had me feeling that I wanted to talk about God spiritually, with people, and talk about that and God in different ways.
And let me ask you this, because certainly for me, when you've come to realize that, and you've come to in your journey to seek that and come one with God, don't you feel at peace, at calm, at happiness when you feel that place? Because I know I certainly have when I meditate, when I'm in my quiet space, when I'm able to think and not have anything on, not and in the total darkness, I feel totally at peace with the creator.
Hmm. Yes. Yes. I feel in love. I feel in love. And that's really powerful for me. And I think they're the same, actually.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, yes.
Yeah.
But it is that piece that keeps me um it keeps me grounded, but it keeps me grounded in those difficult times, like you were discussing earlier about yourself. It keeps me grounded with, oh, well, I already know, um from this experience, or I already know inherently from that connection that I have with God inside myself, that love inside myself. I already know that I can come through this, or I already know what this is. So there is a lot of peace, that comes from that relationship.
And you're so right. I the best word to use, and you're so right about that, is love. Because I think that when you come from a place of love and you sincerely come come from a place of love, whenever you're interacting with people, nothing can come out of that but good. Certainly,
Mm,
people are not going to always be that in that place, but it is so peaceful to me knowing that I came from a place of love. And that's why I always like to say, I am still learning and I come in peace.
mm-hmm.
But love is what I think if we could all get to that place, certainly you're
Yeah,
going to have challenges. That's life. But
right.
it will make it will make the world a better place. And
Yes,
certainly right now, what we have going on with what's going on with the president in this country, it's a challenge for all of us.
it
But
is.
we too will make it through this because this has to happen because with any storm, there's going to be sunshine. And when
Mm-hmm.
we get through this, there's going to be a positivity, I believe, from what we learn through this.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree. And something that's been on my mind throughout this conversation is energy, because even people who are not spiritual don't have a relationship with, anything divine, right? Any divine source can't deny energy.
Hmm.
I mean, we know when there's a negative energy, when there's a negative vibe, we know when there's a more giving vibe or a loving vibe, or if someone looks at us a certain way, or says a certain word, we can understand how the energy changes within us and also how it might change within somebody else. And that's real.
Yeah, it
That
is.
is so real.
Exactly, because haven't you been around people that you may not even have had a word or conversation with, but when you're in their present, the energy either
Yeah.
is going to feel
Yeah.
positive or negative.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
that's the instinct and intuition that tells you you need to stray away or you need this is a good person to be around.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have this one friend, she's very spiritual. She's very, I mean, inside, she's beautiful outside. Inside, she is so beautiful. And sometimes she'll have discussion groups at her home or some kind of event in her home. And the energy, like, have you ever left some kind of event that was related, God related, and then that stays with you like to the next day? It's just so powerful. You get that from being around her.
Mm,
And I'm like, this person is the real deal. And she's not a perfect person, nobody is perfect, but it is so the awareness that she is the real deal is so striking to me because, it's like, what else is there to know? Like
mhm.
just for myself, just I've experienced, real divine energy viscerally, and it's it's enlightening. And I mean, it is a real question. Like, you know, I want to connect that to another dot and another dot and another dot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I was just going to say this. There were two people, and certainly there's other people that I felt that, and I kind of always felt like, oh, I could be around this person forever, was Susan Taylor and Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. You might have to look her up.
I will.
She's
I will.
dead now, but those two women, it was something about the peace that they had in all of the storms
Mhm.
that they were faced that I said, oh, I wish that would rub off on me.
Yes. It is so wild to me
Uh-huh.
that you're bringing up Susan Taylor. Excuse me, because it was something to me when you brought her up earlier because she popped up in my YouTube this week. And so I watched this interview with her and I can't remember it. It was within, I think, the last 6 months or something that this interview took place. And so I was just getting so reminded of her, because I used to live in New York, and at the time I completely forgot about her book In the Spirit. And I have that book, and I remember, I don't know where it is, because I was like, I got to go find that book. And I remember how spiritual it was. And I was remembering just the point of what you're talking about, because I went running in Central Park one day and I passed her. Like, I was running in one direction and she was running in the other direction. And I simply said, I love you. I simply said that. I love you. And she was just so kind. She was just like, oh, thank you. It was just so much grace.
Right.
Everything
It was
that fast.
right.
I was like, oh my God, I just saw Susan Taylor. I just was able to express how I felt. And she was so receptive. Yeah.
Right. She, to me, was the epitome of what I would say a queen. Just a queen, just her presence. It was just so calming.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, listen, I'm so grateful to you. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say that to you too, that I am so grateful for you, having you in my life for this time. It has just been my honor to be on here with you. And I thank you so much for inviting me. You have just, once again, just made me feel so grateful and blessed to have. And it's people like you who come into my life that I just never know. That's why I say I always feel blessed. People come into your life for blessings. And I thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You are most definitely making the world a better place. And I'm sure you probably heard it, but you need to hear it all the time.
Thank you so much.